him off of his high horse.
All right.
Went down to the ground by bright light that shined all around him.
Yeah.
Saul, it's hard for you to kick against the pricks.
Oh.
I tell you this Sunday morning, it's hard to kick against a child of God.
Yeah.
I invite you better leave God's children alone. Saul, after Saul was knocked to the ground, he had to visit another little preacher by the name of Reverend Ananias. Reverend Ananias helped him receive this sight, and Saul would go on down to Damascus. But when he got there, he would not persecute the church, but he went down there praising God. Ain't it amazing how the Lord can change your heart? If you got someone in your family that's not doing exactly like you, just keep praying for them. You need to know that the Lord is able. The Lord can do what no other power can do. Saul went down, persecuted the church, went down to Damascus to preach. And after he left Damascus, later on he would visit a little old church down in Antioch. Down in Antioch was the church another way, and it was first called Christians down in Antioch. He was down in Antioch with another fellow by the name of Barnabas. After he left Antioch, he was set sail, and eventually he would break up, and it would be Paul and Silas. Paul and Silas would be some of the greatest missionaries the world had ever known. The Lord changed his name from Saul to that of Paul. You see, not only will the Lord change your heart, He'll change your name. The Lord will give you a new walk. He'll give you a new talk. He'll make you treat your folks right. Folks you used to couldn't stand, the Lord put love all in your heart. That's what the Lord will do for you. Well, now Paul and Silas will be some of the greatest missionaries the world had ever known. And after returning off of his missionary journey, Paul returned back to the home church there in Jerusalem. Back in Jerusalem, he would meet with Pastor James, who was the pastor of the church there in Jerusalem. Pastor James and Paul had a conversation. Some of the Jewish brethren was accusing Paul of preaching against the teaching and the laws of Moses. Because Paul was going around converting all the Gentiles. You see, Peter converted the Jews, but Paul converted the Gentiles. The only thing Paul would let him know was that, well, the only thing I said was that there was no salvation in the law. Paul said the law was nothing but a taskmaster. The law was nothing but a schoolmaster. There was no saving grace in the law. Well, it was decided by Pastor James of the church in Jerusalem that Paul needed to go on into the temple for some purification of the Jews. After going into the temple that was for the brothers that was going to be purified. What they were really doing was taking a Nazarene vow where they shaved their heads off. And they went through all these rituals. But Paul would go on in there, and at the end of the 7 days of purification, as Paul was leaving the temple, some of the Asian brothers, some of them same Jews Paul had trouble with down in Ephesus. Some of them accused Paul of putting a Greek up in the temple by the name of Thermophilus. Well, this caused a big uproar right there in the city. And according to Roman law, anybody that went in for the inner court was against the law and was punishable even up to death. Therefore, Paul was arrested right there in Jerusalem. Well, as time went on, they wanted Paul to have a trial there in Jerusalem. But Paul let it be known, if I did anything worthy of death, I don't mind dying. But since I have him, I'm going to appeal my case there to Caesar. The Caesar address was there in Rome. Now, Paul realized that he never would see Caesar, but he realized as a Roman citizen, he had all the rights that was afforded to a Roman citizen. Therefore, Paul said, I appeal my case up to Caesar. Well, now, while in Jerusalem, Paul would have to meet with Festus, and he would meet with Bernice, and he would meet soon with old King Agrippa. And Paul preached to King Agrippa. When he got through preaching to King Agrippa said, Paul, thou almost persuaded me to become a Christian. I want to say this Sunday morning to you, when I get through preaching this morning, I don't want anybody to say, thou almost persuaded me to walk down the aisle. Walk down the aisle. Help to twerk your hand. But get the Lord your heart. Well, now Paul was set sail on a ship all the way to Rome. And when he got to Rome, I like what Paul said in Rome. Paul said, I'm not ashamed of the gospel of salvation. But it is the power to all those who believe, that first to the Jews and also to the Greek brothers who didn't want me to have there in the temple. Well, when Paul was there in Rome, Paul was ministering out of his own house. He was under house arrest. But in Rome at the time, you had about 1 million Romans there. But you also had nearly 1 million slaves also in Rome. One of them slaves that came to Paul was a runaway slave by the name of Onesimus. Well, Onesimus had ran away from the city of Colossus. Now, Colossus was located there off the Wolf River. Well, he had escaped and ran all the way from the Colossus all the way to Rome. And when he got to Rome, he got there and ministered to Paul. And Paul converted him over to be a child of a king. Well, ain't it interesting? Now, here you have a runaway slave. Run all the way from Colossus. Run all the way to Rome. When he gets to Rome, he meets Paul. And the man he ran away from was a man called Philemon. And Philemon was Paul's best friend. What kind of luck did he have? Well, the luck he had was the Lord was on his side. Not only was Philemon Paul's best friend, but Philemon also was a convert of Paul. Paul had converted Philemon when he was down now in Ephesus. You see, Philemon was a rich man. He owned the church there in Colossus. In fact, the church was located in Philemon's house. Well, now Paul had this runaway slave by the name of Onesimus. Paul was soon ministered to him. But after a while, Paul knew what the law was. And although Paul wanted to keep him there because he was good health, Paul realized the law say all slaves got to be returned back to the master. Returning the slave back to the master don't mean something up to punishable by death. So what Paul decided to do, he said, I'm going to write a letter. I'm going to write a letter of recommendation on Onesimus' behalf to my friend that's back there in the city of Colossus. People are used to letters of recommendation. We write recommendation when people get ready to go to school. Write recommendation when people get ready to get a job. We used to write letters of recommendation when folks join the church. And if you go to prison, before the prison board, sometimes you have to have a letter of recommendation.